it's Miss Maddie, Mrs. Kelly, or Miss Sweet Pea. Like I said, everyone knows me by a little bit of a different name. So today we are in our second week of our self-quarantine, which I don't know if anybody else is going a little stir crazy, but I know I most definitely am. Trying to keep myself busy doing some crocheting and doing some sketches for hopefully some future paintings. So I want to give you a recipe to make some of your own paint. I'm really excited. The last video I made seemed to have a pretty good response. And since Governor Wolf said we are going to be out of school until at least April 6th, I figured I'd make another video. So today we're going to make some homemade paint. So I was able to make paint and every single color of the rainbow. It's super easy, something that you can make at home with the kids. I know my husband and I last night, we painted a little bit. It just is fun. It's almost like a finger paint. It works really well with an art style called stippling, and I'll explain that a little bit more at the end. So to make this paint, you're going to need flour, salt, warm water, and food coloring. So I know in my last video when we made watercolor, I did tell you that please be careful because food coloring can stain. So if you're going to do this with the kiddos, please make sure that they are wearing something that if it does get stained, it's not going to be a giant deal. Okay, so maybe like some paint clothes. So the first thing we're going to start with, our warm water. It doesn't have to be boiling. It was just a cup of water, so just 1 cup of water that I put into the microwave for 1 minute. And let it cool off just a little bit so it's not super hot, because especially if you have little hands in here, you don't want it to burn anything, right? So we're going to start with our warm water and our salt. So we have 1 cup of water, 1 cup of salt, and then 1 cup of flour. So just equal parts of everything so you can make larger batches or smaller batches. So I want to pour my salt into my water. I want to dissolve it as much as I possibly can before I introduce my flour in. I'll put my salt in, and I'm going to use a whisk. I think it just makes it a little bit easier to make sure it's all dissolved as much as it can be. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to all dissolve. And then when it dries, it leaves like a really cool salty crust on the outside. I think it makes a really cool paint. So I'm going to dissolve as much as I can. Stir. Now I'm going to use a bigger bowl. I'm gonna pour my salt mixture and scrape out as much salt as I can. Still a lot, but and then I'm going to introduce my flour. Like I said, equal parts of all three. So 1 cup of water, 1 cup of salt, and 1 cup of flour. So to make sure this is really well combined, I'm going to use a whisk, just like I did with my salt and my water. So it almost is like making pancake batter. You want to make sure you get most of your clumps dissolved into your liquid. So I'm going to keep shaking out my whisk. Now, there's some faster ways to do this. You can sift your flour, that will get rid of a lot of the clumps. And you can also just put it in the blender. I know that's how my mom always makes pancakes. She has a blender with a spout on it. She always puts all the ingredients right into the blender and blends it all up, and it's super easy. But I wanted to make a video with the least amount of materials possible. So if you don't have a blender, or if you don't have something to sift the flour with, it's still going to work just the same. It's just going to take a little bit more time. So while we're going to finish up with our mixing, I just want to tell you a little story about how I got my Miss Sweet Pea. That's a little funny. Whenever I started at Greater Johnstown Middle School back in November, I was having a hard time with remembering all of the students' names right off the bat. So I started calling everybody Sweet Pea until I was able to learn their names. I thought it was a little nicer than saying, oh, hey you, what's your name again? Well, I guess it kind of stuck, and I have quite a few students who now call me Miss Sweet Pea, and you know, I'm okay with it. So So now that you have most of your ingredients all combined, if it's not perfect, it's gonna be okay. Just add a little bit more texture to your paint. You want it to, I'm just gonna use my spoon, wipe it off, cut all my flour off. You want it to be pretty runny. You can always add more flour if you want it to be a little thicker, or you can add a little bit more warm water if you want it to be a little bit thinner. So what I'm going to use to make my paint is I'm going to, I just picked these up at the dollar store. They were $1 for, I think, a pack of 4. Just little to-go containers with lids. The reason I like to use a lid is, I think I mentioned it, but this paint does need to be refrigerated because it has flour in it. It will go rancid if you just let it sit out for days on end. So just every night, just pop the lid on or put saran wrap over it and throw it in the fridge. And you want to make sure that you keep it, you can keep it for about 2 weeks, a week and a half. After 2 weeks, it's going to probably start to smell a little bad, so you will have to throw it out, and you can always make a new batch. So once you have all of your paint combined, you are going to then pour it into your little containers. So you can make less paint, you only want to make a few colors. I made a little bit more paint to make all 6 of my rainbow colors, but that's all up to you. Now to make all of your rainbow colors, you just need your regular colors that comes in your food dye. If you don't have green, that's perfectly fine. I have red, blue, green, and yellow. You can always make green by mixing yellow and blue together. I will put all of the combinations of colors that you need to use in the description below. It's super easy, I promise. So I'm going to make orange and I'm going to make purple with these 2. Move everything out of the way. You can see what's going on here. So for the amount of liquid I put in, amount of paint, I like to use about 4 drops of food coloring. I think that makes, it's a little bit pastel-y, so I think it's a really cute color. Any more than that, I think it's gonna be a little bit too runny with that much food coloring, and it will probably stain a little bit more. So just using this little bit of food coloring it dilutes it a whole bunch more than using like 6 or 7 drops. So whenever you're making a color, you always want to, that color that you need to mix, you always want to start with your lightest color first, because you can always add more of your lighter color, but you can't take out any of your darker color. So to make orange, I need yellow and red. I'm going to put 3 drops of yellow, 1, 2, and 3. And like I said, I just picked up this food coloring at the local Dollar General. It was, I think, $1. And I'm gonna do just 1 drop of red. Put that in. I'm just gonna use a spoon. And I'm just gonna mix it all up. So if you have a container with a lid that closes tight, this part's even easier. If you don't, just use your spoon, keep mixing it all up until it's one consistent color. But if you do have a lid, put your lid on nice and tight, make sure there's no openings, and you can just shake it. Like I said, this might be, you know, parents, aunts, uncles, grandma, grandpas, you might want to do this part. I don't know if I'd want my kiddos to be shaking this paint all over the place because it'd be all over your kitchen, right? So we have our orange, and now we're going to make our purple. So now when you're making purple, red and blue make purple, and they're both dark colors. I like my purple to be a little bit more on the red side, a little bit warmer. So I'm going to add 3 drops of my red. 1, 2, and 3. And I'm just gonna add 1 drop of blue. There we go. I'm gonna take my spoon that I mixed my orange up with. I'm just gonna clean it off just with a paper towel. And now I'm gonna mix this all together. When you first start mixing your purple, it's going to look like a little bit of a brown color, but just keep mixing and it will turn into like more of a lilac, really pretty purple color. So like I said before, if you have a container with a lid, make it easy on yourself, put the lid on and shake it up, just like a tossed salad. So now we have our purple and we have our orange. So the best way I found to use this paint is to use a method called stippling. All that is you're just using little dots. So this is a little painting I made yesterday. It's just cute little flowers. April showers bring May flowers, because we're almost in April now. So to do that is I'm just going to take a piece of paper, doesn't matter what kind. This is just regular printer paper. So if you have like watercolor paper or thicker paper, that will work better. But just regular printer paper is going to work just the same. So like I said, this does have to be refrigerated. So every day when you take it out of the refrigerator, just make sure you either stir it up or shake it up real good, because it will start to separate. And don't keep it any longer than 2 weeks. This is going to start to smell bad. Just take all your colors, mix them up real well. I'm just going to use 3 colors. So you can get this open. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so you can use just a regular Q-tip. I think these work great. Just put it in whatever paint color you want. You can either make little lines. Like I said, I think what works best is just little dots. I make my little flower stem. And then I can make a little flower leaf. Now I can just like kind of wipe this off so it's not dripping, and then just use the other side for my red. So now I'm going to make the top of my flower. Just little dots. You can make it whatever shape you want. Oh, and a little drop. That's okay. I'll turn it into something. Maybe a little bug, a little ladybug flying around. So I have a little tulip. I can also just use like the back of a pen. So if I wanted to just make some dots at the bottom to be like maybe some grass, I could do that. But what I really like is you can use a fork. So you just get a fork, stick all of your prongs into your paint. You can either make like 4 dots, or what I think is really cool, almost just like raindrops. If you take your fork, stick it down, and you just kind of drag it. There's our little flower. There's endless possibilities that you can do with this. This paint's really fun, really versatile. If you want it to be a little less grainy, you can add a little bit less salt, but it probably won't last as long. That's the only thing. Looks like it's gonna be a pretty nice day out. Maybe it's gonna rain, I'm not sure. You know, take the kiddos outside, take the paint outside, take your paper, tape it down to a hard surface, and just have them paint what they see. Get some fresh air, have some family bonding time. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm hoping to make some more coming up because I think we're gonna have a whole lot of time. But if you make painting, please post it. I'd love to see it. I think it's gonna be awesome. So, and just another shout out to all my kiddos. Just know I miss you, and I hope you're doing great. And hopefully we'll be seeing you soon then, okay? So I hope you guys have a good day. Bye.